Um, I need to go get a cup of water. Let me do that.
I'll get you a cup of water.
I would be happy to. I know how. I know where it is. I was planning on it. Can we move my cursor a little bit without getting on your toes?
You can step on my toes anytime you want.
I might just cut them off and take them home for them tomorrow. Oh, one other thing.
Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much. Third canto part 2. Is this a different stand than we've had before? You stay away long enough, everything looks new. What's your name? Hare Krishna. Thank you all very much for being here. I don't know your name. Kaylee, with a K. Nice to see you. Sorry. Hare Krishna. Very nice to be here with you. Thank you all very much for coming and joining us this morning. That goes also for you who are listening in online. I know there are a few people who listen in because when I'm listening in, I can see the numbers. My name is Rupanugadas, and it's very nice to be here with you. I've been here before, and before that even. I'm a disciple of His Holiness Tamal Krishna Goswami, grand disciple of His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj. This morning we'll be reading from the Srimad Bhagavatam, 3rd Canto, chapter 29, and we'll be covering text number 28 through 35. And by the grace of the Lord, we might learn something. Who knows? First of all, our request for the Lord to be with us. These are two different kinds of car tolls. How do these sound?
Not bad, actually.
We can get by. We can get by with a little help from our friends. First of all, our invocation to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shishi Radha Kalachandji, who are dressed particularly beautiful today in their full moon garments. Beautiful, beautiful white garments. And that causes the other colors to be very much outstanding too. When I saw them in that dress, I knew it must be a full moon day. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivardhari Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yashodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Nitai Gaura Premananda. Hari Hari Bol. Raseshwari Devi is also here today. She's the youngest, oldest soul that we have here. We no longer do the Premadwani prayers after. Okay. Also, Dristadumna Das is here. He is the son, the youngest son of my godbrother, Rohini Nandana Prabhu. Rohini Nandana Prabhu, who left us and went on to his next destination a few years ago. A few years ago? How many? 5 years ago. Doesn't seem that long. Anyhow, most unusual man, and I enjoyed very much being on the planet at the same time that he was. So that's what happens. We come and we go. So Srimad Bhagavatam, spotless Purana, the very source of our deliverance from this material world. Just by hearing about the Srimad Bhagavatam, just by hearing or just by reading it, we can be extricated from this position, this uncomfortable position that we find ourselves in, being housed in a body that's made of nasty stuff, but covered with a nice layer of beautiful skin. And so this is Lord Brahma's doings at the inspiration of the Supreme Lord. So the Lord has given us these bodies to try to find pleasure in this material world, and also to suffer from the mistakes that we've made in not only this lifetime but in previous lifetime. And so this body is a very valuable instrument to us, and it can also be the cause of quite a bit of suffering to us, especially as we near the end of our stay on the planet. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Yasan Tato Jayam Udirayat Nasta Presa Badreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naistiki Rantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Arjun Krishna Prabhu has arrived. He's one of the oldest members of this community. I'm trying to catch up with him in age. Actually, he's about 10 years my junior in that way. But he's far advanced in spiritual knowledge. So, is text number 28 on the board, Mr. Dimna? Yeah, 29-28, chapter 3. Since this is also going to be the verse that we are supposed to concentrate on, I think we shall do the transliteration and the translation, and shall we do the purport? Haven't decided on that just yet. I've chosen. I think I might have chosen some of the later verses to read the purport on. Actually, we may have to do some of this purport, because the first paragraph especially I found to be quite interesting. Okay, so let's do word for word recitation of the text. Jiva. Shall we do? We should do. Just go ahead and do the translations too of each word. Let's do that. Living entities. Shrestha. Better. That's a good word. We're all trying to get better. He, indeed. Ajivanam, than inanimate objects. Tata, than them. Pranabrita,
Pranabrita,
entities with life symptoms.
entities with life symptoms.
Shubhe,
So,
O Blessed Mother.
O Blessed Mother,
Someone is talking to his mother. Who is that? Who is talking? Lord Kapila Dev. And his mother? Devahuti. All right, so Shubhe means, O Blessed Mother. Tata, than them. Sachita,
Chita,
entities with developed consciousness.
entities with developed consciousness.
Pravara,
Pramara,
better.
better.
Two words meaning better in this text. Shrishta and pravara, better. Tata,
Tata,
than them.
and them.
Cha,
Cha,
and. Indriya vritaya,
Indriya, Vitya,
those with sense perception.
those with sense perception.
Translation by His Divine Grace. Now, let's see, we should do this as poetry, shouldn't we? Let's read it as poetry. Jiva Srishtaya Jivanam
Jiva Srestya hi Jivanam,
Tata Prana Brita Shubhe
Tata Prana Vritaha Sube,
Tata Sa Chitta Pravaras
Tata Satchita Pravaras,
Tatas Chendriya Vritaya.
Tata Stindriya Vitaya,
Once more. Jiva Shristaya Vira Ajivanam
Jiva Srestya hi Ajivanam,
Tata Prana Brita Shubhe
Tata Pranana Vrata Sube,
Tata Sa Chitta Pravaras
Tata Satchita Pravaras,
Tatas Chendriya Vritaya.
Tata Stindriya Vitaya.
Somebody else give it a try. Jiva Shristaya Jivanam Tata Prana Brita Shubhe Tata Sa Chitta Pravaras Tata Chendriya Vritaya. Someone else.
Jiva Srestya hi Ajivanam,
Jiva Shristaya Jivanam
Tata Prana Brita Sabe,
Tata Prana Brita Shubhe
Tata Satchita Pravaras,
Tata Sa Chitta Pravaras
Tata Stindriya Vitya,
Tata Chendriya Vritaya. Jiva Sristahi Jivanam
Brita Sube,
Tata Sachita Pravaras Tata Chendriya Jiva Srestaya Jivanam Tata Prana Brita Shubhe Tata Chitta Pravaras Tata Chendriya Vritaya. More. Jiva Srestaya Jivanam Tata Prana Brita Shubhe Tata Sa Chitta Pravaras Tata Chendriya Vritaya. Ladies again. Jiva Srestaya Jivanam Tata Prana Brita Shubhe Tata Chitta Pravaras Anyone else? To go into approval. Okay, word for word. No, we've done that already. Translation. Kayla, would you read the translation, please, to that text?
Translation. Living entities are superior to inanimate objects, O Blessed Mother, and among them, living entities who display life symptoms are better. Animals with developed consciousness are better than them, and better still are those who have developed sense perception.
Just to do them, Prabhu, would you please read the first paragraph of the purport?
Purport. In the previous verse, it was explained that living entities should be honored by charitable gifts and friendly behavior. And in this verse and in the following verses, the description of different grades of living entities is given, so that one can know when to behave friendly and when to give charity. For example, a tiger is a living entity, part and parcel of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and the Supreme Lord is living in the heart of the tiger as Supersoul. But does that mean we have to treat the tiger in a friendly manner? Certainly not. We have to treat him differently, giving him charity in the form of prasad. The many saintly persons in the jungles do not treat the tigers in a friendly way, but supply prasad foodstuffs to them. The tigers come, take the food, and go away, just as a dog does. According to the Vedic system, a dog is not allowed to enter the house. Because of their uncleanliness, cats and dogs are not allowed within the apartment of a gentleman, but are so trained that they stand outside. The compassionate householder will supply prasad to the dogs and cats who eat outside and then go away. We must treat the lower living entities compassionately, but this does not mean that we have to treat them in the same way we treat other human beings. The feeling of equality must be there, but the treatment should be discriminating. Just how discrimination should be maintained is given in the following 6 verses, considering the different grades of living condition.
Okay, now this we got some pretty important topic here, and that is how to treat lower living entities. They have to be treated differently than we would treat human beings. And the example Srila Prabhupada gives is of the tiger. We can't welcome a tiger in to sit at our table, because he'd probably eat us and the table. And other living entities also. I'll regress a little bit. We first came here in 1979, and this community was one of the most degraded communities in the city of Dallas, I would guess. There might be some that are slightly more degraded. Anyhow, we had to live in these houses around here, which were not in the state of repair that they're in now. We had animals joining us in the house. we had rats of some size. There were lots of cockroaches. We even had skunks in the community. And one day, a skunk wandered in, found his way in through the restaurant area. There was an opening, a vent or something, that the skunk came into the hallway here. So, and then of course we had skunks all around, and from time to time they would spray, when they would feel endangered. So we actually had to get the city to come out here and rid us of skunks. And they did so by killing them. Now, we don't really like for even skunks to have to be killed. But when we're running a place that is, when we're operating a temple community here, in which we really want other persons with human bodies to come, they might be reluctant to come if they had to encounter a skunk in the hallway. Then there are also raccoons, which are still here, that can be really destructive. They're smart. They know how to open containers that have some kind of food in them. They will tear a screen off your back porch to get in if they can smell something on your back porch that smells like food. So they're rascals. And then we have opossums here also. I've got one that's taken up residence under my storage building behind my house. And he's okay. He gets out and wanders around, looks for little bits of things. And I understand that opossums also eat ticks. Did you know that? They consume a large quantity of ticks. So each creature has its own place, its own purpose. Now, we have to keep our houses clean in order for them to be habitable by human beings. So therefore, whenever we have an infestation of roaches or rats or even squirrels can get into your attics and build places there. Anyhow, we have to do something to be able to keep them out. Sometimes that calls for annihilation. And we don't really like to have to do that. But sometimes it's necessary. Sometimes ants come into the house. And they find a way to get in. These are old houses, so they've got places where critters can enter. And we have to find a way to, as best as we can, stop up all the holes so that we don't have to take some strong action against them. Anyhow, what we're learning in this verse is how to respect other living entities who are embodied with the same kinds of, well, not exactly the same kinds of bodies, but they're made of the same stuff that our bodies are made of. And not only are they made of the same kinds of stuff, but they're also, each one of those little bodies has a form of the Supreme Lord dwelling in that body with him. Because the soul that is in that body is not different from the soul that inhabits these human bodies. So you understand then that it's very difficult for a devotee of the Lord who has this knowledge to take some harsh action against other living entities. Really hard to do. Srila Tamal Krishna Goswami, in one of his essays that he wrote while he was at the Southern Methodist University, he talked about a man that he had seen in India who was doing something. He was clearing up a piece of ground, and he was putting some kind of rice flour or wheat flour all around this mound. And it was an ant mound. And he had taken some kind of a vow to feed, 10,000 living entities a day. So now you can do that if you're out in the country, but now when you get into the city and those ants happen to sting pretty bad, and you got little kids running around in diapers or just, a mess, they can get hurt really bad by these fire ants. So we have to take some action against them. And again, it hurts us to do that knowing that there's another living entity in that little body that is of the same quality as the living entity in these bodies. It has personality. But we see from this verse also that there are different gradations of consciousness and different gradations of sensory experience that these little critters have. And it go on into the second paragraph of this particular verse. It's said that even a stone can have a living entity in there. And Prabhupada goes on to say that stones and mountains can actually grow and increase in size. So let's go on. Text number 29. Nrsinga Rupa, would you kindly read the translation?
Among the living entities who have developed sense perception, those who have developed the sense of taste are better than those who have developed only the sense of touch. Better than them are those who have developed the sense of smell, and better still are those who have developed the sense of hearing.
And while you got the microphone up to your mouth, I want you to tell us why Srila Prabhupada has used the word better here. as it's translated from the Sanskrit. Why is one living entity considered to be better than another? What is that better? Better in what way?
Like superior, their senses have developed more, and so in that sense, like the sense of taste is better than those who have developed only the sense of touch.
And how does that make them better?
You can experience more. You can taste prasadam. You can. You have the ability to do more.
The higher we get in the order of living entities, the higher we get. I guess this is what Srila Prabhupada meant. Better means the closer we get to being able to ask the questions that we ask in the human form of life. And what are those questions? What were you going to say?
So they're more evolved towards a human.
More evolved toward the human form. Yeah, so we believe in evolution, do we not?
Yes.
Is anybody surprised to hear that? You've heard that before. Devotees do believe in evolution, but not evolution of the species, rather evolution of the consciousness of the living entity. So with each birth, the living entity is either going up or coming down on this list of the species. And how many species are there in this universe? And of those 8,400,000, how many are humans? Ripamaya Prabhu. 400,000 is correct. Yeah. So the closer then the living entity gets back to the human form of life, I guess we could say the more fortunate that he is, because he's able to perceive things more. His senses become more awakened as he moves through the different forms, the different body forms. So in that sense, we say that he has evolved in consciousness. And it is said in here somewhere in the purport that even trees are able to see. And that was kind of surprising to hear because, Prabhupada mentions that trees, when they're growing, they encounter an object, an obstacle to the direction their limbs are going, and so they simply go around that object. Or maybe if they can get around him without pushing him out of the way, and then they will cover him with their leaves, and they will get the sunlight. So the scientists would have us think that there is some force within those trees that causes the limbs to go around obstacles. So trees can see. I've heard it said also, maybe I've read it, that trees are considered to be more advanced in consciousness than fish are. Their position is more desirable, according to what I've read, than that of fish, because a fish, what is his normal state? He's always in the water, and when he's in the water, he's always fearful that something is going to either hurt him in some way or kill him or eat him. And so the body of a fish is not a very desirable place to be. And you can remember, perhaps some of you remember when there was a big tsunami off the coast of Japan that flooded a nuclear power plant that was right there on the coast. And there were many, there was a tidal wave from an earthquake. And that tidal wave came in and swept across that nuclear power plant. And it was I don't know how long after that they were tracking the radiation as it crossed the Pacific Ocean. and eventually wound up very close, if not right at the coast of California. Did you know that? So all those human beings who were there and had to face that tsunami, that was a horrible, horrible way to die. And you probably have seen videos of it on YouTube or some other medium. And to see all that water coming in and just washing over buildings and taking vehicles, taking ships that were in the harbor there close by and just putting them somewhere way up into the land. It was a very horrible thing, very horrible way for a living entity to die. And my spiritual masters also talked about the fact that there's such a thing as regional karma or national karma. So that living entities, because of their past activities, sometimes find themselves taking birth in a place that has to experience something like that. I've heard also of volcanoes that have occurred and have caused the melting of snow and ice. And it's caused a mudslide to just completely engulf villages that were somewhere they thought was a safe distance from the volcano, if it ever erupted. But it'll completely cover. So Krishna's material energy is heartless. And we know that this Mahamaya Devi is another form. What is her source? What does she come from? From whom does she come? Mahamaya Devi. More directly than that, pardon? Radharani. Srimati Radharani. Yeah, eventually it comes from Srimati Radharani. And of course, we've also heard that Maya Devi, or Durga, is another name for this material energy, that she is embarrassed to come into the presence of the Supreme Lord because of her very, very regrettable duty that she has to perform. But when living entities cause other living entities harm in their attempt to enjoy their material senses in this material world, there's a price to pay. And it seems from what we have read and from what we've experienced that the more intense that pleasure is that the living entity goes after, the stricter the punishment becomes, the harsher the punishment becomes. So that if a person gets to the point that some of the despotic rulers of the past century got to, they may be responsible for the deaths of millions of persons throughout the world. And should we mention them? Adolf Hitler is one. And there were others. There was one in Spain, one in Italy. In Russia, Stalin came after that. And they had no regard for human life. So this is the punishment then that comes from that is exceedingly more severe than it would be to stepping on ants because you can't see them. There is a price to pay for stepping on ants and for also putting out poisons in the house so that the bugs do not come and infest the house. And that can be very troublesome. But at the same time, we're human beings, so we need to have some consciousness that the living entities are there in those bodies. And the Supreme Lord is also there with each one of those living entities, observing what is going on in the life of that particular body form that the living entity has taken. It is now time for us to discontinue our conversation here and ask for questions according to the rules of the Krishna house. Who would like to speak? Questions are always good. Now, this is something that I want everybody to understand, that we also welcome comments. But when it comes time for questions and answers, and I listen to all the classes that are here in the Temple Room, and it's impressive to me when someone goes to the trouble to listen to the speaker and then come up with at least one intelligent question at the end of the class. Mr. Bhagawan Prabhu was really good about that. Some of you might know him. He was here. He's now in Mayapur, as I understand it. But he would always come up at the end of a class, he would come up with a really nice question. And I understand that has also been Srila Prabhupada's instruction to his disciples. So now, I could ask for questions first, but I'm also interested to know what your observations have been. They don't have to be in the form of questions. Who's going to speak?
So I don't know if it'll be, I have a comment and a question. I'm hoping that the question is a little bit intelligent at least. You've put the bar up pretty high. I was really appreciating.
There is a price to pay if it's not good.
Okay. I was appreciating your explaining that what better meant, because just in the last class we heard about how the living entity should look at, perspective should be always how I can serve every living entity. So then you could get a little misunderstanding of, these I'm better than these living entities, or they're inferior to me. So why should I serve them? But when we understand that they're, this is just a sense of the body being at a certain place, time, and circumstance, but the soul is in quality exactly the same as us. So I was appreciating that explanation. My question is, Prabhu, you were mentioning that in some circumstances that we might have to make our environment in a way that's nice for our living situation. So I was thinking, and then you explained that there was a price to pay for, the entities that we disturb or commit violence to. So how do we understand as when, or what's the rules to, when I disturb other living entities to make my situation better, as okay?
When is violence okay?
Yes, like maybe violence through disturbing their living situation, or even annihilating them, like you said. Like sometimes we have to take the skunk out, and then boom, it's moving to its next body, hopefully.
Well, it's really best when Krishna's on your chariot with you and he's advising you. Then you know that violence is okay. Just as Krishna had to tell Arjuna, forget going to the forest and becoming a mendicant and begging for your livelihood. You got a bow in your hand, you're a fighter, you're a kshatriya. Now get up and do your duty. So that's what he said. Of course, he said it a lot nicer than that, I think. Here's a situation in which Arjuna was facing millions, hundreds of millions. How many millions? 640 million people on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. And, some people who are not under the tutelage of Srila Prabhupada would say that's imaginary. That could not really have happened. There weren't that many people around who were fighters at that time. But it's what is said. It's what the Bhagavatam says, and that's what also Mahabharata says. I'm looking at you. You have something to say. Does anybody want to make a comment on that about what is the proper time or proper circumstance under which one can commit violence like that without having to suffer a lot of karma from it? Kayla?
Okay, Hare Krishna.
Kaylee?
Yeah.
Kaylee, sorry.
That's okay.
Kaylee.
Hare Krishna, yeah, thank you for the class. And I also agreed with Nanda Braj about, I like so many of these points. I was going to ask a similar question. I was thinking, and also comment that it feels For me, like working in gardens, we had to kill a lot of worms, and you see so many other living entities, and it was really difficult. So someone told me that the best way to do it is to have the consciousness of saying Hare Krishna, that we're like kind of elevating them from this material body, and that because we're chanting Hare Krishna and we're saying the holy names to them as we're, doing something that we have to do given the circumstance, it kind of sends them up. Like it helps them, they used to do animal sacrifices so that the animal would get a human birth. So when we do it in that kind of consciousness, then it's actually beneficial for the other living entities.
Excuse me while I consult. Come closer. I could hear most of what you were saying, but at this age, the hearing is shot. So I'm having to ask my mentor here
Okay.
to please express the point one more time.
She was saying that through chanting Hare Krishna and having the Krishna consciousness, that the living entities that are part of the duty that we're doing, they also get benefit. And so in their next life, they have the opportunity to have a human birth. So, yeah, yes?
Yeah, like if we have the consciousness that when we are killing them, or when we have to harm them, then we're sending them, like giving them an opportunity for another birth. So.
Modern day fire sacrifices. Modern day fire sacrifices.
Yeah, Tamal Krishna Goswami once said that even when you strike a match to light your stove, you're killing a lot of living entities in the atmosphere. And even when you blow air, he said, you're killing some living entities. So how are we purged of that? You were saying you're forgiven to some extent when your actions are all directed towards service to the Supreme Lord. Is that correct? Did I understand correctly? Yeah, that's our state of mind. Microphone.
We have to have that state of mind as we are performing the action. If we do something, like we hurt someone, and then afterwards say, "Oh, I did that for the Lord," it's a little bit different. Like we have to, while we're in the garden and doing something, we have to have that consciousness that, okay, I'm sending this. I have to do this. It's my duty. I'm hoping that I'm sending this animal, they can get a human life or a better life.
I heard that, and I understood that well. Yes, I think we must have the consciousness that whenever we have to take some action, like ridding our house of pests or insects, we have to have the consciousness that I'm doing this so that I can stay here in old East Dallas and live in these houses that have been here for 100 years. And I'm doing that to serve the desires of my spiritual master, who has the desire to serve the desire of the Supreme Lord. And so if I have to take some action like that, I come before my spiritual master, I come before the Lord. When I'm having to take those actions, I can even say it. My dear brothers and sisters, my little ants or roaches as such, I'm sorry to have to do this to you, but this is not the place that you can come and have your home. And if you have that kind of consciousness that I'm doing it not for my own pleasure, and we're not angry because the critters are there, we should not be angry because they're simply carrying out the instructions of Super Soul, who happens to be in their body. So anyhow, yes, we have to have an attitude of apology for causing distress to those. I've heard that you should not even cause anxiety to lower living entities. Like yelling at cats and dogs. Sometimes we have to do that to get them out of our yard or something. But even or to scare another living entity. If you got a pet of some kind and you come in and yell, make a loud noise or something, that causes anxiety to that living entity, because he immediately thinks something is trying to hurt me. So yes, we have to have some kind of an attitude that we approach living entities like that with, which signify that we're aware that the spirit soul is there in those little bodies, and so is the supreme soul there in those little bodies. Thank you. Another question or comment? Are we out of time? It's 8:32. That says we're out of time, right? Okay. Grantala Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai. Thank you all very much for joining me, being here with me, and patiently tolerating it for this class. Those of you listening in online, same to you. It's our great pleasure knowing that you're with us. So we say to you, because you're devotees of the Lord, Vanchakalpa Tarubhyascha, Kripa Sindhu Evacha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namah, Ananta Koti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Srimad Bhagavatam Ki Jai, Shri Radha Kalachandi Dham Ki Jai, Gaura Premananda. Can you turn these microphones?